Welcome back. Happy Monday, everyone. Tyler is back. He thought he escaped. He clawed his way out. He was like, relief. And I just reeled him back in. Got that fish. I was like, no, come back in.
Not so fast.
Not so fast, exactly. And I will have you know that I am in the chat. I paused it effectively, Tyler. I had doubts about whether or not I was going to be able to just pause. The hit pause is as simple as that and be in the chat. And here I am. So you never know what's going to happen. We have an interesting show planned for today. I decided that I wanted to focus on some stats. I'll explain why in a second. But this just popped up interesting. This is not related to what we're going to talk about today, but popped up in my Twitter feed. A tweet that says 40% of DC's black students 12 and up could be relegated to their homes this fall due to vaccination requirements. Unbelievable what they're doing to people over a vaccine that does not stop transmission. You're going to have just wait, because parents' eyes are wide open and they're just not going to budge. And I don't know what's going to happen now. I really don't. But that stat alone, my blood boils. You guys know nothing makes my blood boil more than a story related to children that are being targeted for absolutely no reason. Well, actually, it is for a reason, because, Big Pharma's got to make more money. All right, we're not going to cover that today. We may get back to it, though. That just, when the blood boils, sometimes I got to just release that energy. I got to start off with a release. Otherwise, I bottle it up, and then you never know. Tyler could be in trouble. I could just spew from here. You never know. So I did that interview with Rollo Tomasi, and I wanted that to be a conversation. And I often talk, I do the TikTok reacts, and I bring a lot of my own personal story in oftentimes, because I want you to understand where I'm coming from, right? How I grew up, how I was raised. And I do believe that your values and the way that you were raised and what your home life looked like and what your what time period you grew up in and what life was like. Was there technology in the picture? Was there not? All of these things lend my perspective. So I tell you all that because I'm like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. Here's why. And I also want you to get to know me as a host and understand that I'm not one of those people that gets on air, has a big microphone, and won't share what's going on in my own life, what's going on in my own family. I like to be much of an open book. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of stuff wrong. I've done a lot of stuff right. And I feel like we can learn from it all together. So that's why that happens. That's why I sit here and I don't just spew stats all day long. But remember, I come from the world of politics. So when people say to me, oh, Jed, you don't have stats, I always laugh, because that's all there is in politics. You do data analysis, polling analysis, trend analysis to figure out how people are going to vote. That's all I lived and breathed for a very long period of time. So I decided, you know what? And of course, at the end of today, the new complaint will be, well, Jed brought the wrong stats. I don't like those stats. Someone will always have something to say about what you do. This is an important lesson, everyone out there. There's always someone waiting to complain. So just do what you got to do and don't worry about them. But I do think it was an interesting moment to take to share some of those statistics, which, by the way, in large part reinforce what I'm saying and what I've been saying. And I'm not saying there's not going to be a stat out there that disagrees, or you can find a stat for pretty much everything out there. You can also find a poll for pretty much everything. But some of this stuff kept repeating and kept coming up. So what I want to talk about today are stats related to marriage, to dating and relationships, to happiness and health as a result of marriage or being single. And I want to start with something that is kind of on the periphery of this discussion, but is often cited. We know that money plays a role in a lot of the decision making that goes on in a house. We know that money plays a role in marriage. Money plays a role in dating. There's been a lot of controversy about the pay gap, right? And one thing that's always cited, there's actually a day, Equal Pay Day. I don't know if you celebrate that, mark it on your calendar, but Equal Pay Day is March 15th in this country. And
it's my birthday. I was going to joke and say I buy a cake on Equal Pay Day.
There you go, Tyler. Who knew? Controversial. Do you know why it's March 15th? This is really interesting. According to the National Committee on Pay Equity, this date symbolizes how far into the year women must work to earn what men earned in the previous year. Okay? So what's often brought up, the talking point that you hear from a lot of people on the left, yes, but also from a lot of women across the spectrum, is that women make less money than men. And the implication there is that they're doing the same job and putting in the same amount of hours and somehow making less money, when in reality, that is not what's happening. So I want to go to National Review has an article by the great Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you know him. If you don't know him, you should. He's brilliant. He's opined on pretty much everything in the political space, but he talks a lot about the myth that is the pay gap. Let's read a little bit from there, because he talks about the importance that career decisions come into play. The amount of hours you actually work come into play. Let's take a look. Women as a group do get paid less than men as a group, so he says that's true, but not for doing the same work. Women average fewer annual hours of work than men. They work continuously for fewer years than men, since only women get pregnant. There's another controversial statement he made. Only women get pregnant. Thomas, can't say that in 2022. Crazy world we live in. And most women are not prepared to instantly dump the baby on somebody else to raise. Being a mother is not an incidental sideline, and being a single mother can be a major restriction on how much time can be put into a job, either in a year or over the years. So what he's saying is, for one reason or another, sometimes it's choice, sometimes it's you have a child, you're pregnant, it's not always easy to work through a pregnancy, you take a maternity leave, whatever it may be. He's saying that men put in more hours at a job. They tend to work more hours, and as a result, they make more money because they're putting in more hours. Okay? Interesting, though, that he points out, which I thought was really the crux of the whole argument. He says as far back as 1971, single women in their 30s who had worked continuously since high school earned slightly more than men of the same description. As far back as 1969, academic women who had never married earned more than academic men who had never married. So do you understand why he's pointing that out? It's not about sex. It's not about gender. It's about time. It's about time. It's about hours. It's not like somebody walks into a room and they say, oh, well, you're a man, you're a woman, you're doing the same amount of work. We're going to pay you differently because men should get paid more. No. It's about hours. It's about decisions. It's about choice. Some women may decide they don't want to work that many hours, that they want to prioritize work-life balance, that they want to stay home when their kid's really young. They may make those decisions. Some women may find themselves in a circumstance where they feel pressured to make that decision. That absolutely does happen. Or they may feel that they do a bulk of what's going on in the house in terms of chores and whatnot, and then can't give all of their energy as well to an outside job. So maybe they feel a little pressured in that area. I'm not saying that it's always because women just say, oh, I have all the options in the world, and it's not. Sometimes you feel a little pressure. Sometimes you feel like you can't be everything all at once to everybody. But there are decisions that are made, and sometimes it's elective, right? So again, this isn't just outright gender discrimination. That's not what's happening here. A lot of this has to do with decisions being made within a family by a family. So you have to also, in addition, factor in what careers they choose, right? What careers do women choose? I remember that when I was in college and we were talking to the education department about something. I had a major in Spanish literature, but oftentimes a lot of education majors would have a concentration in Spanish. Most of the education majors were female. Teachers don't make as much money. A lot, when you look at finance and the arenas of finance, oftentimes you'll look in a room and see a bunch of guys. In New York City, that's how it looks. Sorry. Not all guys, but that is the reality of where do women and where do men gravitate. Not all, but a lot. That is part of what goes into how much money you make. You decide to be a teacher, you know you're not going to be making, $800,000 a year. That's a decision. That's a decision. Okay? And again, how much time you want to take. A lot of women say, when I have my baby, I want to stay home. My mom stayed home with me. I talked about this with my husband yesterday. My mom stayed home with me the first few years. She went back to work, I think I was like 7. She wanted that. She wanted more than anything her whole life to have a child. That was really important to her. So they made that decision together. So did my dad make more money? Yes. Would it have been the case if they decided not to have a child? I don't know. My mom had a pretty great job. I remember when she was younger, they always talk about how she had this great job and she left it. She didn't want to do it. She wanted to have a daughter. She wanted to have a child. She did want to have a daughter, but she wanted to have a baby above all else. It's so funny. She always says, I wanted to have a daughter. I want to have a daughter. Now she has a grandson and she's obsessed with him. So you never know. Now it's like, my boy. So you never know. So why did I do the pay gap? I did that as a starter because I think it's important. People throw talking points out a lot, about equality. People throw talking points out. We were talking with Rollo the other day about equality and what it means to be equal. And I was stressing over and over again, equality of opportunity, not equality of outcomes. But that word equality gets thrown out a lot. And it always, look on social media when it's like around equal pay day, you will just see stuff vomited out. Women make less, but nobody does the dig. Why? And how much of that was of their choosing? So I wanted to start with that before we dig into some career stuff. So one question that comes up all the time, and this kind of bleeds out from what we just talked about, is the reason why so few women are in executive roles in these Fortune 500 companies. So I found this article. It's from A Voice for Men. Cites a lot of stats. The real reason so few women are in the boardroom. This is from 2018. And it begins in an interesting fashion. On average, women are rated as slightly better managers than men. Also, women better understand the female consumer's mindset. That's important because women make most of the purchases. So why are only 11% of Fortune 500 senior executives women? That's a small number. That would be used by feminists. You could see it already. Tagline. You could see it coming in. Only 11%. Why? Well, you got to do the dig and figure out why. The primary reason for the 11% figure is that men on average are willing to devote more time to their career. Again, more hours and time it takes. A study conducted by the Business Roundtable, an association of CEOs, found that the average CEO works 58 hours a week. And Fortune 500 CEOs likely work more. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours to put into a week. Do women want to put in that many hours? No. In general, no. Comparative to men, they don't. That's not a reason to belittle them. That's not a reason to embarrass them. Maybe they're just different and they have different priorities. Could that be? Of course, now acknowledging that men and women are different is essential to this whole conversation, right? We can't have this conversation if we're going to say men and women are the same. They're not. We are not the same. I'm very proud to be a female. I'm not a man. I'm not trying to be a man. I don't want to be a man. We need to get that straight. And you realize why the gender debate becomes so important in all of this. Because if you don't establish basic facts, men are men, women are women, they're different, how do you even have this conversation? Truly, how do you have any conversation? That's why I focus so much on reality versus fiction. Let's look back at the article. The October 10th, 2004 lead story on 60 Minutes and the September 2003 New York Times Magazine story documented that a majority even of Ivy and Stanford educated female alumni did not work full time. Harvard Business School reports that only 38% of its female MBA graduates during their childbearing years work full-time. Do you see how there could be a huge disparity in the number of hours worked between men and women given those statistical facts? Dr. Warren Farrell, author of Why Men Earn More, found that a key reason men earn more is the number of hours worked. He keeps saying it over and over again. Why is this ignored in the conversation about the pay gap? Well, because it's convenient to ignore it. That's why, because it's easier to just have a talking point and put it on a sticker and run it on social media, and then a bunch of robots follow it, pick it up, and then suddenly you have people voting based off of that. Okay? It's no secret that women tend to vote Democrat. Why? Because they eat up all these talking points when, in fact, a lot of these outcomes are a result of their own choices and their own decisions. This is reality. This is the fact. This guy also says, the guy who wrote this article from A Voice for Men, all this doesn't surprise me. Having been career coach to 2,000 professional clients, 2/3 female, I know that more women than men prioritize work-life balance, wanting more time for family, home, friends, and recreation. This is true. And again, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. I can talk about stats and I can share personal experience. When I came out here, I could have done a podcast 7 days a week. Pat was open to it. He was like, what do you want to do? I don't want to do a podcast 7 days a week. I'm doing a podcast 3 days a week. Do you know why? Because I have a 2.5-year-old and he is my number one. The job I took before this was with Fox and Friends Weekend. And I did very long shows on Saturday. We had a 4-hour straight show. So it was a long day. It was like an 8 hours in TV is a lot. 8 hours on Saturday. And I had a brief stint on Friday. And sometimes I'd fill in here and there. But I chose that because I was in a phase where I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a baby. My family comes first. That was a decision. Could I have made more money if I had opted for I had different opportunities presented to me. I said no. Because for me personally, and I happen to be a female, last I checked, for me, work-life balance is important. I'm not somebody that's comfortable getting 3 hours of sleep a night. I realize that I may not make as much money as somebody who is capable and wants to work get 3 hours of sleep and wants to work, 80 hours a week. That's not me. That's a decision. So then I can't sit home and complain that I don't make as much money as that person, right? I'm making decisions. Women oftentimes make different decisions. Think about the women and men in your life. Women, they want to do their exercise. They want to spend some time with friends and family in large part. Work-life balance is something that women really care about, that oftentimes high-powered men don't care about as much. It's just a reality. Think about the people that you know. The studies support it, but it is reflected in life. That's not to say of course you're going to have a CEO out there, a female who wants to work all day and night. That is not the norm. Okay, so we have to account for that, right? Different outcomes will be produced based on the amount of hours you want to put in. And listen, it's not all about money, right? What leads a fulfilling life is subjective. So I look and say, well, I will make less money by making X, Y, and Z decision. But my decision is that I will have a more fulfilling life because I will have more time with my child, with my family, time to exercise, and get that 8-hour quality sleep because I'm a health and wellness girl. And if you don't sleep, death's coming to your door sooner than it would have. Just saying. That's my choice, right? Many women feel that way. As a result, they're not sitting in the boardroom as much, right? You have to acknowledge the why for these things. Okay. Let's see. This is interesting to me. He brings up hiring. This is on page 2 at the bottom. Imagine you were the CEO of a company and were considering 2 employees for a senior position. Candidate A had, over her or his 20-year career, worked 50 to 60 hours a week and in spare time made great efforts to keep upgrading skills. Meanwhile, candidate B worked 40 hours a week and in spare time focused on family, home, and recreation and had taken years off to raise children, thereby losing professional contacts and currency with the latest information and technology. You'd almost certainly choose candidate A. Fact is, more men than women are like candidate A. Okay, now you look at that. That is a reality. That could happen. What I would invite, I kind of saw that. My mind kind of wandered to a different place. I would invite people who are doing the hiring to think about something else, though. It's not all about hours. Take a look at this. Women are better employees than men. The author, I would brutalize this name, so I'm not going to try. Olustatin Gabriel. There, I tried. Check this out, though. According to research conducted at the University of Georgia and Columbia, girls are gifted with abilities and competencies that transcend the domain of cognitive performance, attention, and memory. These traits are attentiveness, task persistence, eagerness to learn, learning independence, flexibility and engagement, and better work organization. These are studies that compared young girls, young boys, and then men and women in workplaces. Interesting. Women have better organizational development and employee coaching abilities with a team. In a Harvard leadership review, women were rated as excelling in deploying initiative, acting with resilience, practicing self-development, driving for results, and displaying high integrity and honesty. These are in comparison with men who were only rated better in their ability to develop strategic perspective and technical expertise. Combined with other innate skills such as conflict management abilities, social connectedness, and negotiation skills, women raise professionals who work under them more than men. Okay, so in other words, the ability to instill in others a work ethic and efficacy of production. They're talking about women's leadership abilities in those areas. More studies. It's just interesting. According to research by Hive, women work 10% harder than men in today's offices and have a slightly equal or more completion rate than men. This is because women are good at multitasking, less prone to distraction, work flexibility, and have a work-family balance. These are further substantiated by research in the Journal of BMC Psychology that shows women outperform men when multitasking. So again, men work more hours. What do you want? And this is going to be up to a CEO to decide. Studies show that men work more hours. They're willing to be in the office, physically present more hours. That's a decision that they've made. Many studies will support that women are better at managing that time. So do you say to yourself, I will need someone then, if they're female, to work less hours to produce the same results? Are they bringing something different to the table? You know, it's said here, men are experts in strategic analysis. Women bring a little bit more of those interpersonal skills, leadership development in terms of encouraging future leaders within the company. So it's up to you, right? I think the bottom line is that men and women bring unique sets of skills. Why? Because they're different. And most companies will acknowledge that the reason that the diversity becomes something that happens, not forced diversity, not you must have this many women and this many men, but the reason good CEOs oftentimes will diversify, and that means they hire people of different ages, they hire people of different backgrounds and skill sets, they hire men, women. The reason they do that oftentimes is because there's different skill sets that are brought to the table. And it just helps a company to flourish, having more of that going on as opposed to hiring carbon copies of everybody. So it's interesting, right? But again, men are inputting more hours. So if you're looking for bodies, right, to sit there for more hours, you're going to hire more men. Fact. Don't get upset with what I'm saying. That is a reality. Okay? Also, don't get upset if you make less money if you're there less. That's it. Don't get upset about it. Don't label it discrimination. It's not automatically discrimination the same way it's not automatically racism, and you're not automatically a bigot. All of these words, like, aren't you tired yet? Let's just dig into the research and figure out the why. Okay. So now that we've handled a lot of the financials and all of that, what really interested me about this whole debate on stats is marriage. Okay? Because what I see happening in a lot of the manosphere, not all of it, but a lot of it seems to be like kind of telling men don't marry, or you'd be crazy to marry because of X, Y, and Z, or you have to be really, really careful because most people aren't trusting, and you have to be very hesitant to put yourself in that position because you could be taken advantage of. You know, it's always an outgaming. I'm going to outgame you before you try to outgame me. So I wanted to look at, is marriage good for men? As it turns out, men in particular. Okay, because we just had that big conversation about the manosphere. I'm responding to a lot of TikTok videos by people in the manosphere. Men in particular are doing better when they're married. I'm here to tell you that is the case. Let's take a look. This is from Men and Marriage, debunking the ball and chain myth. You heard of the ball and chain, right? You guys know that? Where it's like dead weight. It's like, oh, did I really need this? Getting married? I don't know. I was floating free. Turns out, getting married, good decision. Let's take a look. Page 1. Okay, and this is from Family Studies, Institute for Family Studies. Despite its prevalence, the ball and chain review of marriage is simply not supported by the research. Indeed, the benefits of marriage for men are substantial by every conceivable measure, including more money, you heard it here, a better sex life, and significantly better physical and mental health. Okay, so let's take a look. First, they get into money. And they talk about how when it comes to work and money, marriage has a transformative effect upon men. Married men typically work harder, smarter, and more successfully. They are less likely to be fired, interestingly. That's not surprising to me, actually, because you know, when you're married, you have accountability at home. You want to take care of your family. You want to contribute to a household, so you're going to be more diligent, right? As they make about $16,000 more than their single peers with otherwise similar backgrounds. This is what economists call men's marriage premium. Okay? Married men earn between 10 and 40% more than otherwise comparable single men. And the most sophisticated recent research suggests that marriage itself increases the earning power of men on the order of 10 to 24%. So my mind immediately went to, well, what if they get divorced, though? Because that's the argument gets thrown out. Okay, you have a marriage, you get divorced, she walks away with all your money, it's all over, you're depressed, you're not going to make... Okay, well, let's see. Even men who weren't successful at their first try at marriage and get divorced are better off than men who never got married in the first place. Marriage seems to be a wealth-creating institution. If you take a look at that chart, median wealth by marital status, this is in 2004 dollars. It's very hard to find stuff that's super-duper current, like to the day. But I thought this was interesting. Men in their first marriages, 167,719. Look at the never married men, and then look at the married and divorced men. Still better off financially than if they had never been married before. That was very interesting to me. I don't know that I would have surmised that. Okay. Let's look at their sex lives, because oftentimes what you hear is, oh, single guys, they're having all the sex and they're having all the good sex, and those guys are the happiest, and these married men never get laid. Everybody says that, right? They never get laid. Is that not the argument? I hear it all the time. It's in the movies. Don't you love when movies make you believe stuff's real? You walk away thinking, oh, that's married life. Then you go and do it, and you're like, wait a minute, it's not like that at all. Crazy. Who knew the movies lied to us? I did. You did. You knew it. On average, the quality of married sex trumps that of unmarried sex. According to the National Health and Social Life Survey, 51% of married men reported they were extremely satisfied with their sex lives, compared to 39% of cohabiting men and 36% of single men. A majority of married men also found sex extremely physically pleasurable, compared to a minority of men in unmarried relationships, as the figure below indicates. Contrary to all conventional wisdom, married men find sex more emotionally and physically pleasurable than their unmarried peers. Well, could that mean that men are often labeled horribly? It's like, oh, all they care about is the physical. All they care about is that. Oh, it's like they see something, it's eye candy, they act on it, they get a lot out of it, it's done. Could it be that men actually benefit from an emotional connection just as women do? That if you're in a partnership, if you really love someone, if you can rely on them the way they can rely on you, if it's someone that's there to walk through the hills and valleys of life with you, that, yeah, sure, you want to be physically attracted to them, but that whole package makes the whole thing richer for men too. Could that be? Let's think about it. Let's talk about physical and mental health benefits when it comes to married men. Research suggests that men who get and stay married live almost 10 years longer than their unmarried peers. What's more, marriage benefits health in numerous and surprising ways. For instance, a recent Harvard study found that even among men diagnosed with cancer, married men live significantly longer. Is that surprising to you? This was not surprising to me. Again, if you have a partner, you get bad news, you walk home, right? Imagine your life. I was single for many years. You get bad news, you come home, you look to your left and your right. There's no one there. You can pick up the phone and call a friend. That friend doesn't share a life with you. That friend is not invested in life with you. They have their own life. They have their own thing going on. They could be supportive. Is that the same thing as you come home, you get bad news, and you have someone who shares a life with you that you can say, what are we going to do about it? You're not alone. You're in it together. Let's figure this out. You brainstorm together. You both share finances. You share hopes. You share dreams. You share secrets. You're in it together. Is it any surprise that your wellness would be better when you have someone there to be a partner with? Is it any surprise that if you got bad news about your health, that you would have an advantage if you had somebody there to walk through that pain, suffering, downward spiral that may come back up with you, right? This is not rocket science. Okay. Married men experience less depression and more happiness than bachelors. The General Social Survey tells us that young married men aged 20 to 39 are just half as likely to report they are not happy, with only 6% responding that they are unhappy compared to 17% of unmarried men. Likewise, young married men are twice as happy. 43% of married men report they are very happy with life compared to 20% of single men and 21% of cohabiting men. So again, this stereotype of, oh, all these guys running around town, sleeping with this one, sleeping with that one, come home. Oh, we have no attachments. We don't owe you anything. That doesn't mean you're happy. A lot of those guys are lonely. They're depressed, right? Maybe they're distrusting of women. Maybe they're hesitant to get involved. Maybe they see that a lot of games are being played. But would a lot of those guys ideally like to have a partner? And would they be happier if they had a partner? I believe that based on what I'm seeing in studies and based on what I've lived in my life, I believe that that answer is yes. I believe there are a lot of men out there that are fundamentally good people and don't want to be in a dark world, don't want to be in a dark dating world. They don't want to play that game. Maybe for a minute it's fun, gets old real quick. I've never seen more happiness in men than when they have a partner that they really care about, that they're attracted to, that they feel really good about. Guys can be very simple about that stuff, right? Good meal, good sex, good partner you trust, no headaches, good TV show, maybe a video game or two, ordering some wings. That's a night. I relate. Kind of feel similarly in many ways. So they mentioned the Harvard study. I went back and I looked at the Harvard Health Publishing Marriage and Men's Health. This is from 2019. I wanted to see how big the survey was, how many people were sampled. As it turns out, pretty large. In that Harvard Health, it says a major survey of 127,545 American adults. That's what was referenced when they said that married men are healthier than men who were never married. Men who have marital partners live longer. We went through that already. But that's a pretty big, decent sample size. What was interesting to me is that they broke the study down in terms of your heart. They talked a little bit about cancer, as we mentioned, and then they talk about the mental health. What was interesting about the heart was they cite Japanese scientists. And it says Japanese scientists reported that never married men were 3 times more likely to die from cardiovascular disease than married men. And a report from the Framingham Offspring Study also suggests that marriage is truly heartwarming. Scientists evaluated 3,682 adults over a 10-year period, pretty long period of time, 10 years, to track people. Even after taking major cardiovascular risk factors such as age, body fat, blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, and cholesterol into account. So this wasn't just a blanket observation. They took all of those into account. Married men had a 46% lower rate of death than unmarried men. Maybe it's not so stressful to be married comparatively. Maybe there's a lot of reward in that game, a lot of enrichment, and a lot of calm and peace that comes from that partnership when you actually take the time to find a real partner and you don't look to out-strategize someone on second one in a game that needs to die. Just saying. And they dig into the cancer issue a little bit. They say among people who received cancer therapy, so people who get a diagnosis and then get the treatment, marriage was linked to improved survival. Again, it's a support system. It's a support. Think about that. Everything you do in life, you do better when you have a support system, right? A functioning support system. Think about it like a group project, right? When you were a kid, I always hated group projects because it was like, sometimes you got a group that did nothing. That's not helpful. Then you wind up doing your work, everybody else's work. You're mad, you're bitter, right? Oftentimes we didn't have the ability to select that group. The teacher just assigned you. But when you get a really good group for a group project, it feels amazing because you're all working together. Everybody's doing their part. Everybody's doing their share. They say teamwork. What is it? Teamwork makes the dream work. Is that how they say it, Tyler? Is that it? It works, but the team can't be lazy and then you're doing, it has to be a real, this is what I'm advocating for. I am advocating to find your way back to partnership. The system may be broken, but the answer is not to break it more. It's like everyone's looking at the system and saying, well, the dating system is broken. So now you got to out-strategize that person. You got to pull back. You got to do this. How about the system is broken? Let's fix it. Let's find people who want to fix it. Let's invest in them. Let's stop playing the game altogether with people who want to play the game. Those people will learn. They're going to be alone a long time if nobody's willing to play the game with you. Eventually, you decide not to play the game either, right? Nobody wants to play the game all alone. You ever sit at a board game and try to play with yourself? Sorry, beep, beep, beep. After a while, you're like, let me go do something else. When I say starve the beast, I mean starve what's ugly, build up what's good. You don't have to settle for garbage just because there's a lot of garbage that exists right now. No. Make a decision not to entangle with garbage and to do better. You will be one of many people. Think about if everybody made that decision, the garbage would be sitting all alone playing sorry. Not for too long before they got bored. Then they'd have to man up, woman up, and treat people better. Okay. I wanted to look at some stats. I'm going to get over to you, Tyler, in a little bit because I have to get, his observation as well. Tyler's listening.
Well, and we got a couple super chats real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Scott gave 2 $20 ones.
Awesome, Scott.
Said we don't have men these days. Bunch of girly men that take off 3 months for father bonding time. At the same time, most women these days make men take time off because the women don't allow men to be men anymore. And he also said, when you get married, never stop dating each other. Make time for each other. Women, let your man be a king. Men, treat your women like a queen. Women need to know how to turn off the mom mode and remember they're a wife to a man.
I think that's Scott, all from Scott. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott, by the way, for your contribution, for your thoughts and comments. I think those are some really interesting comments and important, right? Because it's easy, like I have a child and I relate to what you're saying, that it's like you become a mom. But I'm also a wife, right? That's very, very important. And I think treat your man like a king, treat your woman like a queen. That's what I'm talking about though, right? Partnership. You know, you've got your partner for life. You've got your family. Be proud of that. You know, let your man be a man, I think is very important as well. Men have, you know, these natural inclinations in terms of like wanting to be strong and wanting to be a protector and wanting to feel a sense of fulfillment and reward from being those things for a woman. Let him have that. You know, it's a give and take, right? It's a give and take. My husband's very, this is interesting. And, you know, see, again, I'm going to bring up a story. My husband is very focused on discipline when it comes to Hartley. He's the one who got him on a feeding schedule. He's the one who got him on. He's just a disciplinarian in a way that I'm not. I'm kind of more of the pushover, to be perfectly honest, which is funny because everyone's like, oh, you're a badass at the mic. Yeah, at home, my kid says, mommy. And I'm like, what do you want? What can I do, baby? You know? But he knows that I'm a mama and I'm nurturing. So even though Jeremy will, you know, the baby will come in and want to sleep in the bed, and Jeremy's really firm about wanting to get the baby to sleep in his own bed and understand it's okay. He's very good about that. Every now and then I need to crawl up with my little man. And he knows that. He lets me have that because he knows that one of the reasons that he really wanted to marry me was because I was nurturing, and being nurturing is something that I love about myself. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to give an inch on this. Let her have that moment. So it's all about give and take and respect. I love those comments. Okay. I looked into some marriage stats overall because I wanted to talk about infidelity, and I wanted to talk about what makes a good marriage versus a bad marriage. And I was hearing a lot about how, you know, women initiate divorce more, which is true, and some of the reasons why. And what gets shoved in my face all the time is like, oh, it's about money. Oh, it's about, and I was like, that doesn't ring true to me. That doesn't make sense. As it turns out, that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. So let's just take a quick look at marriage stats. This is from datingnews.com. Something like 39% of U.S. marriages end in divorce. Okay, it's well below the 50% mark, but that's still a decently high number. Many experts attribute the steady decline in the divorce rates. I don't know if you know that. It's actually on the decline. It's not on the rise. To the fact that young people have proven to be more likely to wait to get married and more likely to stay in those marriages. Okay, so they're like giving it a little bit of time. They're not getting married right out of college. A little bit more time to get to know someone and be an adult in your own right. Okay. The most common final straws when it came to divorce, very interesting, reported in the survey were infidelity at 59%, and too much arguing at 57%, and domestic violence at 23%. Most notably, 73% of respondents agreed that a lack of commitment was a major contributing factor in why their marriage didn't work. You guys copy that? Infidelity, lack of commitment. So everyone out there arguing, oh, I'm going to have a main, and then I'm going to have my... Yeah, that's just not what the majority of people want. What the majority of people want is a respectful relationship. They don't want to be cheated on. They don't want to be your main while you go out and sleep with a bunch of women. They don't. That's not what the majority of women want. They want to be respected. They want to be in a situation that's more of a traditional partnership. That's reality. This was interesting to me. This has some people take issue with this post on the stats, but I thought it was, I'm bringing it up. There will be conflicting stats on this, but this was really interesting to me about sex. This is the Institute for Family Studies, Nicholas Wolfinger. He's a sociologist, and he found that Americans who have only ever slept with their spouses, meaning you had one partner, you got married to them, are most likely to report being in a very happy marriage. Meanwhile, the lowest odds of marital happiness, about 13 percentage points lower than that, belong to women who have had 6 to 10 sexual partners in their lives. That's interesting. Now, there's a lot of the reason people didn't like this study is because they're like, well, is that because they don't have a basis of comparison? You know, I think it's really hard personally to have sex with one person and then marry them. I do. I respect people who do it. There's plenty of people who do that, stay married for their whole lives. A lot of religious people feel very strongly about that. Respect. Not here to judge. I personally would have had a hard time with that. Don't forget, if you like what I'm doing here, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button, and we're going to give you more. You like the stats? Let me know. Do you want more statistics involved in the show? It's very easy for me to do this. This is where I come from. This is my home base, shall we say, stats. So if you like it, let me know. I'll bring more to the table on different topics, politics, you name it. It's easy to do. Let's look at infidelity a little bit deeper, because this is one of the, I think, when I talk about societal decay, this is one of the things that really gets me the most, is how many people are cheating. And what I found here when I looked at these numbers, this is from Hack Spirit from 2022, how much cheating is going on. What I found is a lot of cheating was going on. That was not a surprise to me, but that men and women are cheating for very, very different reasons. Again, a lot of people surmise that women are cheating because they're bored or because of this financial distress. I think you'll be surprised to see exactly why it is. I was not actually surprised by that number. Let's take a look, though. This talks about the disparity in numbers of how much infidelity is going on. Some websites have published unverified numbers claiming about 40% of unmarried relationships and 25% of marriages see at least one incident of infidelity. Another estimate, this is from the Journal of Marriage and Divorce, concludes that 70% of married Americans cheat at least once in their marriage. That number sounds a little high to me, but again, you see the disparity in stats. More reliable numbers from the U.S. General Social Survey point to lower statistics, but they're still worrisome, right? Even if it's a 39%, it's still worrisome. It's why. Why is it happening? Okay, so let's take a look. A poll from Superdrug Online Doctor found that men and women cheat for very different reasons. So they do a chart, the top 5 reasons people have been tempted to cheat or have cheated. I'm going to focus on American women and American men on the right. The left is European. I think that culturally there are a lot of differences that come into play there. It's just too hard to cover that all today. So let's focus on the United States. American women, number 1 reason, my partner stopped paying attention to me. Okay. Number 2, the other person was really there for me. Again, that's like one and the same. Your partner wasn't paying attention, somebody else was. I was having doubts about my relationship. The other person was really hot is number 4. It's not even about that, I'll tell you that. And number 5 is I was bored. That reason that people cite the most often, boredom, is actually number 5 on there for women. Look at American men. Number 1, hotness. Okay, men are very visual. 2, people were hitting on me. 3 was having doubts about my relationship. 4, my partner and I weren't having sex. Everybody thinks it's like, that's another accusation that gets thrown. Oh, well, they weren't having enough sex in the homes. The guy went out. And no, oftentimes that's not the case. And 5, my partner stopped paying attention to me. Very, very different. Again, that partner not stop paying attention to me is number 1 for a reason women cheat. And number 5 for men. I don't know if you remember on the podcast a few weeks ago, I had said something to the effect of, I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe I was talking to Adam. And I said, if a woman marries a guy for the wrong reasons, let's say it's strictly financial, this guy's got a lot of money, end of story. You will oftentimes, within a very short period of time, find that that woman is divorced or sleeping with the bartender, I said, down the street who plays music for her, doesn't have a lot of money, but makes her feel wanted, needed, appreciated. Boom. There you see it. 100%. Women need to feel that you are present, engaged, and appreciated. Oftentimes that shows up in ridiculous media conversations about like, oh, don't forget to buy flowers for Valentine's Day. And that's not what we're saying. I don't care about flowers on Valentine's Day. Oftentimes it's you went and did something for no reason at all, right? It's a day that's not Valentine's Day. It's not her birthday. It's not Christmas. And you went out and you were like, babe, you know what? I know you like roses. I stopped by a store and I thought I'd pick these up for you, or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be flowers. It could be chocolates. It could be a candy bar. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be all diamonds and a diamond ring and it's not all about money. It's about caring enough to make somebody feel appreciated. That's number 1 based on what these people have said. I would concur. What's interesting in this too is how did people meet the person with whom they cheated or attempted to cheat with? Number 1, for women and men, they were a friend. So that's an interesting conversation to have at another time. And maybe we'll do that in our Shoot the Shit on Wednesday. We have Vinny Oshana here on Wednesday, by the way, for a Shoot the Shit. It's going to be fun. Maybe we talk about, can you be friends with someone of the opposite sex? I'm basing this conversation on heterosexual relationships because it gets just too complicated to bring everything into play, right? So they were friends. Number 2 reason where the cheating happened, at work. What I found shocking is that in this day and age, social media is all the way down. Dating app or website is further down. So it's still coming from friends, people you trust, people who you may confide in about your relationship. That's bad, by the way. We'll talk about why one day, but you shouldn't be like, You're a female, you got a guy friend. You don't call that guy friend and talk about your marriage and what's going on. That's wrong. That's weird. It's inappropriate. Don't do that. It's disrespectful. You have a problem with your relationship, you talk to your man about it. That's how that should roll. But, they talk to that guy and they're just friends, and that guy starts to console you, and suddenly, there you go. You know how it happens.
It's a plot line for a movie.
It's a plot line. Maybe we'll make one here. Right, it is. And it happens in movies a lot of times. That's where they get it right. So again, and it summarizes in this article, women cheat when they feel lack of intimacy and feel ignored by their partner, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very different reasons. Do you understand why you can't have any of this conversation unless you come to the table willing to acknowledge that women and men are different, care about different things, prioritize different things, okay? But can benefit from a lot of the same things, like a trusted marriage, a trusted relationship. Okay, let's see. Is that my last? I also want to get to... Wow, I talked for a really long time, Tyler. I got to say.
Did you want to do the Atlantic one? Fewer sex partners.
No, I touched on that, but I'm not going to dig in too deep because I don't like the... I look at... Not only to look at the data, guys, but I have to then look at the conflicting data, and then I have to look at the sample sizes, and a lot of criteria that go into play there. So... Before we get to some I chose some videos that I wanted to react to today based off of this discussion. But what I really walked away when I looked at these stats feeling was very much how I felt before I looked at them, which is that I believe that partnership is desired by most, that respect is desired by most people, and that a respectful partnership where there is fidelity, where there is concern, where there is, you let a man be a man, you let a woman be a woman, you acknowledge that you're different, but you support each other, is not only wanted by most, but that's your recipe for success, okay? And again, I'm going to repeat this again. When you're inside a building and it's burning, and let's say that the dating market is that building right now, because there's a lot of shit going on that's bad. We all have to acknowledge that. When you're inside that building, you don't throw more gasoline on the fire. You try to put it out. So that's what needs to happen. We need to flip some of what's going on by taking ownership of our own decisions and our own mistakes, by deciding to do better and deciding to engage with people who don't want to play the game. And if you don't care for yourself, because maybe you're out of the game already, you better start caring for the next generation of kids. Because if we don't fix it, if the dating game is a mess now, what's it going to look like in 20 years? Is fidelity going to be a thing of the past? The stats show that people care about fidelity. Women in particular, even more so than men, care about fidelity. So what happens then? You got a whole bunch of women that don't want to date, don't want to get married. Then what? No procreation, no family units, and men care about it too. So you have to look forward. It's not just about outgaming somebody. That may work for a single guy hanging out in South Beach at the club. That's not going to work in a family. It's not going to get you where you ultimately want to be, which is feeling loved, respected, and in a situation that's good for you and you're proud of. Bottom line. With that being said, I got some videos here. Let's respond. We have 4 of them, all appropriate for what we've been talking about today. I'm going to do a live react to them. We'll start with "This is why men are not getting married." Let's start with that one. Tyler, when you can, pull that up. This is from Fresh and Fit.
If I told you, cool, you're going to get married, but you have a 50% chance of divorce. You're going to have to pay alimony, 90% chance that you're going to have to pay alimony, 90% chance that you're not going to be able to see your kids, and it's going to go to the man, and you're also going to have to give up 50% of your money. Would you still get married?
Okay, so do you see what's wrong with this right from the get-go? Doomsday. You go into any situation, and I don't care what it is. You go into any situation in life looking at what could go wrong the way he's looking at it, you will never do it. So I thought about a couple of things. I was like, looked up a couple of stats. 43% of first-year drivers are involved in car crashes. It's a pretty high number. You going to not get in a car? Is that going to be your decision? Oh, there's too much against me. I can't do that. No, you're not. You're going to get in your car. You're going to be responsible. You're going to put your seatbelt on. You're going to look both ways. You're going to pay attention. You're not going to be on your phone. And you're going to enjoy that ride. You're going to put your windows down. You're going to feel good about it. You're going to sit back. You're going to feel empowered. All of those things. 2021, 3.2 million people were treated in emergency departments for sports injuries. This was interesting. Exercise, cycling, basketball were the most frequent ones. This is from the CPSC. You're not going to play sports? You're going to give up that basketball? You're not going to do it? No. You're going to stretch, right? You're going to stretch on the sidelines. You're going to try to be physically fit so you're mobile. You're going to pay attention to what's going on around you and do your best not to get it. Does that mean that you will never get burned? No. Nothing in life. You can't eat food without the possibility that you could choke. You can't drink water without the possibility that you could cough up, get something caught down there. Every single circumstance that you get in a pool, everything that you think of in life, me getting from this table and walking down to my car, I could slip. Everything has risk involved, okay? So this attitude of doomsday when it comes to relationships is going to bury you. It will bury you before you've had the chance to have a successful, fulfilling, rewarding relationship. Don't take the bait. Make better choices. Okay? Go out on several dates. Get to know somebody. Get to know their family. Get to know how they treat their friends. Get to know their circle. Take your time. Have good conversations. Really know the person that you're investing in so that you're not sitting worrying that they're going to take this. Imagine going into a marriage. Well, they're going to take this from me if it ever ends. First of all, you won't sleep. You won't have good sex because you'll be distrusting of that person. It's just not a recipe for success. So again, things are broken. You have the power to do better, to fix them. Not everybody is operating like it's doomsday from day one, or they wouldn't bother. No one would be married. People are married and they're happily married, and you can be too. But you can't have this attitude on day one. That doesn't mean don't be smart. That doesn't mean if there's a girl that's like, oh, I want a sugar daddy, you run up and no. Be smart. Okay, but you can still be smart and live life. Okay? Video number 2. Let's look at this. You can't do this to women.
Women, like, you can do anything to women. They've said this for a long time. You can do anything to women except bore them. Can't bore them. You can do pretty much anything else. Literally. You can't bore them. Women don't have patience for boring. Right?
We just dispelled that, did we not? This is Entrepreneur in Cars. He has a YouTube channel. It's Peter Cooper, right, Tyler? Is that his name? Rich Cooper. He's got a YouTube channel. I checked out his website. I have to say, truly, in my opinion, some terrible advice. I'm just saying, not all of it though. There's some, it's almost like if he does a 2-minute video, there's a little bit of it that I sometimes will find myself being like, oh, that's a good point. Not all. Remember, it's very hard to find somebody where you're like, everything they say is bad. That just means you're closed-minded and you've got, your own agenda going in. Some of what he says is fine, but there's a lot of stuff that it doesn't kind of tie in well at the end. We just showed you a whole bunch of stats that show you that women are not unhappy because they're bored, that they care about fidelity, that they care about you paying attention to them, that they care about you being attentive, that they care about having somebody to come home at the end of the day and talk to, that they care about having a partner. We just went through all, not only the stats, the surveys, all of that on that. Okay, when women divorce you, the chief reason they divorce you is because you've not been faithful. So now you've got this guy telling a whole bunch of guys, oh, as long as you don't bore her, you can do whatever you want. And then what? All those people are going to wind up divorced because that's not a reality of how women feel. Nobody wants to be perpetually bored, right? Nobody sits and watches a TV show that's boring from start to finish. But I would rather be bored 100% than be with somebody who was disloyal, unfaithful, and stressed me out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That doesn't mean choose a guy that bores you to tears. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to say women care about more than just being bored. So that's just not a reality. That's not the truth. That's bad advice because it's not reality. It's going to get men to do things and behave in ways that's not advantageous to them, thinking women want a bad boy and they won't care, and that's not a reality. Women don't want to marry a bad boy. Again, what's fun for 5 seconds is not going to be fun for 15, 20 minutes. I made that time period short because that is the reality. Bad boys get so boring and typically are terrible in bed. Just going to say it. Okay. Tyler's like, I need more on that. I'm going to need a story.
Well, no, I want to know what this guy's context is, because if he's talking about picking up a woman, he's absolutely right. If you're trying to pick up a woman at a bar, don't be boring. If you're trying to date somebody the first couple of dates, don't be boring. Don't do something exciting. Give her a reason to stay and to marry you and to hang around and all that kind of stuff. But to your point, if you're in marriage, that may be a different story.
I didn't take it as I tried to find like the surrounding and like even typed in some stuff, because these are sound bites, right? Somebody could cut a sound bite of me and go and have a whole rant about it, and then they missed what I said before and what I said after. But that's true. You don't want somebody to walk up into you in a bar and try to make conversation with you and have no personality. That's a problem, right? Right from the beginning. But the implication for me here was that women were willing to let a lot of stuff go as long as they weren't bored. Doesn't work. Not with the big stuff. Yeah, maybe, picking up your socks off the floor, but not with the big stuff. Trust is really, really important to women. I know you think we want to call all of our friends on a Saturday night and have to worry about where you are, and that's part of the game and the thrill of the chase, but that's for girls. We're talking about women here. Okay? We graduate. We don't have time for that. We don't make time for it. We don't want it. It's a headache. It's stress. It makes us break out. Our stomach's not right. No. Very quickly, that becomes not an option. Okay. Let's go to, and we're going to come back to, by the way, guys, ladies, guys, in the chat, we're going to come back to the chat at the end of the show. So please, if you have questions, comments, please share them. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like if you like this direction that we talked about some stats and had a conversation about that. I would love to hear from you. We have 2 more videos. Men shouldn't get married anymore. Let's do this one. Oh, this is our friend Andrew.
Marry me or I'm leaving.
They're done.
Then why the f*** you marrying a she's already thinking about, she's already given you conditions to keep the relationship. If a woman truly loves you, you sit there and say, look, I've been around the world. I'm about it. I know things you don't know. Signing that piece of paper is bad for me. It's also bad for you. It's bad for business. Shut the f*** up. Okay, but how do I know you love me?
Okay, so.
I tolerate you.
Oh, man. He's so polite sometimes, isn't he? He's right about one thing, I will say. Do not give a man conditions. That never worked. If you have to give a man conditions like marry me or else, he doesn't want to marry you. Stop doing it. Just, you can decide you're with a guy for X amount of time. You can decide you're ready to get married. You're tired of being, you feel strung along. You can have that conversation and say, listen, are you interested in getting married? They say, no, I'm not ready or I'm not interested. You then have the power to say, well, I'm not going to sit here anymore. I'm going to go find somebody because this is what I want for my life. I want kids. I want direction. This is where I'm at now. If it's not going to be with you, end of story. But you don't try to make them feel bullied into it or pushed into it, because then you're going to wind up with a man who didn't want to marry you, didn't feel comfortable with it, and now feels like he does have a ball and chain, like he's trapped. You don't want that. It's not good for him. It's not good for you. You'd be much happier with someone that felt ready and wanted to make that decision of their own volition because they wanted to genuinely marry you. That is where a happy union starts. You want it, he wants it, you both want it. Not one person feels pressured to do it. So Andrew's right about that. The whole I'm worldly, it's just, he is, but he's been around, he's got a lot of experience, but this whole I'm worldly and you're a simpleton act doesn't work for me. I know he's got his act going on and all that. That's not going to work for most women either. But what he says about signing that piece of paper is being bad for men and women, so we know that it's not. We just spent a whole show talking to you about the extraordinary benefits that marriage can have. We went through benefits for men, again, physically, mentally, financially, sexually, the deep, multifaceted benefits for men when it comes to marriage. Again, though, it seems like these guys always, it's like they're imagining worst case scenario all the time. Marriage, you say the word marriage and they immediately think of somebody who's using them, who's trying to take their money, who's going to stay married and then divorce them in a few years and walk away with half the cash. Again, that's just, if you want to play that game, you're going to be very unhappy, you're going to be alone, and you're going to be ignoring a whole lot of women that aren't shitty, don't want to do that to you, and would really like a partner. Okay, now Andrew Tate may not want that. Maybe he doesn't want a partner. Maybe he doesn't want any of those things, but maybe you do. And you're listening to that and you're thinking marriage is bad for me. No, the right marriage can be really, really, really good for you. The right marriage. Don't jump into it, like we said, but don't dismiss it on day one. This is not, you guys got to really think about the stats, think about your own life, think about what you want, You may not want his life. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to have a main and then have a maybe you do. Think about that. But again, think about the stats on happiness, because a lot of those guys that are single, they're not happy. They're stressed out. They're lonely. They're not happy. We got the stats on that. We shared them with you earlier. Also, you can't run your marriage like a business. He said it's like business. It's not. Not everything can be run like a business, and a marriage are two very different things. A good business is managed based on profit, right? That's why I always say the government, you can't compare a government institution to a business too, because the government doesn't have to make money, right? Businesses, good business practices are all centered around who you hire, what your setup looks like. You want to make money. You want to make profit. A marriage it isn't just about profit. It's not just about finances. Okay, it's about give and take. It's about partnership. It's about caring about someone. It's about having somebody be there for you when you need them and you be there for them when they need you. If it's just a business, if you're going to look at marriage just as a business, then yeah, don't bother. Don't bother. Get a business partner. Get a roommate. Get a roommate with a lot of money so you can get a nice pad. End of story. But think about what happens in a world where everybody started to look at the equation like that and saw marriage as a business. What would it look like? Not too appealing. Not too appealing. Think about kids. Where do they even... A marriage is like a business and then you bring kids into the world. Is that the picture? Is that the greeting card you want? Everybody looked at a greeting card when they were young and said, oh man, that looks so peaceful to me. You know, a family, a dog running around. I think that makes a lot of people's endorphins run. That is a marriage that's not set up like a business. It's set up like a partnership. Know the difference, know what you want, and stop listening to advice that's not going to take you down a path to your own happiness. Okay, number 4. Why middle-aged women can't find a good guy. This one's diverse.
From a woman that wanted to know why she's struggling finding a good guy. She's in her early 40s, professional, making about $220,000 a year. The first reason why you're struggling is because you have a very narrow dating pool. If you're a professional woman in your 40s or 50s, you've got a few pieces of paper on the wall framed in mahogany. The problem is that, generally speaking, guys are not attracted to degrees. Men are success objects to women. Women are beauty objects to men. Successful men that you'd like to date, they generally date younger, hotter, more agreeable women. The quality of women in that age bracket aren't long-term relationship type of material. They've got a notch count. They often bring small children in tow. They're also fairly disagreeable, and men of higher caliber.
He throws this word around a lot. He loves this word, agreeable. It sounds to me oftentimes when I hear him talk like he wants, rather than a wife or a partner, more of like a compliant housekeeper, sex robot. I don't know. I don't know what to term it, but I'm not really sure. I would like to dig a little bit more with him. He's obviously not here to discuss what do you mean by agreeable, and why the assumption that somebody who was in her 40s and 50s who was successful would somehow be disagreeable. Problem. Why is that automatically a correlation for him? I would be curious to ask. He also talks about high caliber men and what they want. Again, high caliber is a debatable word. 2 words, debatable expression. It seems to me that some people identify high caliber as primarily how much money is in your wallet and how much financial and work success you've had. There is a whole bunch of people that will define high caliber as your character primarily. And yes, your ambition, your motivation, yes, of course, your academic successes maybe, your professional successes, whether or not you sleep around. Can you be trusted? Are you a good friend? Are you a good son? Are you a good brother? Many, many things go into what a high caliber man is. Too many. That may not fit the definition of what he's saying, a high caliber man, but a high caliber man who's diverse and has all of those attributes, they're not going to want a robot. They're not trying to just boss somebody around or a puppy dog they can pat on the head and say, you've been agreeable today. Again, that agreeable person, when shit hits the fan and you need somebody, like something happens in business, something happens with your health, and you need to bounce off somebody, what are you gonna say to them? Oh, what do you think we should do? Whatever, dear. Whatever makes you happy, dear. Stafford wife? No, they want, hey, but what do you think I should do? Do you want to do this? There's no point. Don't get married. Don't bother. Don't do any of that if you're looking for an agreeable dog. Get a dog and train it really, really well, because even dogs aren't always agreeable 100% of the time. So there are good points. Again, yes, do you narrow your dating pool if you're 40s and 50s? Is it narrower? 100%. There's going to be a lot of guys out there that want to have kids. Now you're not going to be in an age bracket to have kids. Is that a legitimate point? Yes. Are all men focused on your career success the way you are? No. Some of them may not care about that. Are you in your prime? Do you look the best you've ever looked in your life in your 40s and 50s? Well, most don't. Most don't. Do some? Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. There could have been somebody that didn't take care of themselves when they were young, who was overweight, who was not into health, and then got older, got fit, got a new lease on life, you know. Maybe, sure, those people exist, but the majority of people, do they look better younger when they're younger? Yes. Yes. That's just a fact, right? This shouldn't be controversial. So some of the stuff he's saying, yes, great points. But if you're talking about women like you want somebody to be agreeable, you're not looking for a partner. So audience, just know what they're saying. They're giving advice off the premise that you're not looking for a partner, that you're looking for an agreeable little puppy dog, willing to be the main while you have, you know, whatever going on. All that whole image. That's not what you want. Maybe this isn't the advice that you take. Just think about that, okay? I'm not saying they're wrong on everything, but they get a lot wrong, okay? All right, so that's my commentary. Those are just some videos that I saw that related to the stats. Tyler, do we have any comments, thoughts in the chat, or from you that you'd love to share?
Chat's been wild. Liz gave $5, said, Jed, keep talking to women on how to improve. Nobody is talking to us. They're talking at us or about us.
I love that comment. And that's why I focus on, I think I'm going to do, this show was mostly about men and what's going on. Although we talked about what women want and what women, you know, why women divorce and a lot of stuff like that. But somebody needs to have a really deep conversation with women about their behavior and what's going on wrong with women right now, and what they're settling for, but also what they're choosing and why the self-respect has gone out the window. So these are things that are really important to me. I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but I've taught a lot of kids my whole life, and I've been around, you know, little girls, and I watch them, and I'm just like, they just, some of those values that have disappeared need to come back, because it really solidified a whole system that was on the whole just way better than what we have today. So thank you for your contribution and for your comments. I appreciate it. Anything else you got, or any comments from you?
Not from me. I'm trying to find some other good ones here. But,
yeah.
Chat's been wild, really going off. A lot of the guys don't agree at all.
They don't agree at all.
A lot of the guys in the chat don't agree. They think that this guy, for example, the agreeable, they're saying that agreeable and dumb doormat are different. But there's a lot of guys in the chat that are very very disagreeable to your points.
Oh wow, you guys got mad at me. I would love to know what agreeable means, because agreeable means that you don't make any waves. To me, my understanding is that you don't make any waves. That's not a human being. That's not a person, right? I'm not talking about somebody that's out to start a fight every day. Nobody wants that. You come home and they're mad about something on Monday, and they're looking for a fight on Tuesday, and they're, you know, hounding you about something on Wednesday. That's not good either. But in the same breath, like, you don't want like a robot either. Or, I mean, then get one. You can get those, you know. We're in 2022. You can get one of those if you want. But that's not a person. That's just not how people operate. So I stand by what I said.
This guy's had a lot to say. Elzon says modern women are just grown children.
Who are you talking about, Elzon? Who are you talking about? Again, like who fits? And listen, I am not here to say all women behave well, all men behave badly, or vice versa. That is not the takeaway from my comments. But if you are hanging out wherever you're hanging out and meeting women that are grown women that behave like children, then you got to switch up your scene. right? You got to switch up your scene. You got to maybe meet somebody through friends. You got to, I mean, the one thing I will talk about briefly, and then we're going to close, is what's going on. A lot of the corruption that's going on in dating now, and it is, don't get me wrong. I am very glad I'm not in the scene right now because it sucks. A lot of what's bad is going on in these cities, right? In the South Beach, in the New York City, in the Los Angeles, in the Chicago, in the bars, in the clubs, in places where people tend to gravitate when they are single and they're looking for a night out. It's just not a good space to meet a partner. And I think that a lot of the frustration that's coming out when it comes to men and women is the frustration due to the population that you're encountering there. So if that's what's happening for you in those spaces, do something different. Try, getting set up by a friend, somebody who knows you, somebody who knows that you're not a shitty guy. Try going to different places to socialize. Maybe it's a lounge and not a club. Maybe there's a different walk in and see that it's people who are couples, people who are, you know what I'm saying? You got to assess these areas. It's not fun to be in that stage where you're like, I get it. I completely get it. But you can't just say, well, all women are shit, all men are shit. And you can say that, but then you're signing yourself up for a life of being alone or aggravated or unhappy. Don't do it. Decide you're not going to be that person. So you're with a girl and she's behaving like an overgrown baby. Decide you're not going to tolerate that and make a commitment. Say, I'm going to find me a woman who has self-respect, and I want a partner, but I want it to be somebody that's going to respect me, a give and take. Make that decision in your mind first, and then chart out a path to get there. Don't just decide, oh, it's all shit. So you know what? They treat me badly. This one treated me. So I'm just going to treat everybody like shit now in turn. That's what's happening. It's like, oh, women, I hung out with a bunch of badly behaved women, so now I'm going to be a badly behaved man. Ha ha ha. I'm going to show you, or I'm not going to marry you. Okay, but marriage, like good marriages, benefit you. So maybe the idea is I'm not going to marry you. I'm going to marry somebody else who gets it right. Tyler, we good? They're mad at me. Tyler loves the chat when people are angry at me. He's like, yeah, I never saw him so excited just be scrolling. They're mad.
They're saying you're gaslighting.
They're always going to have something to say about me, guys. Listen. I do my best. Listen, you asked for some stats. And I told you at the beginning of the show, I bring stats. You're not going to like the stats I brought. You know that. If you're out, here's another thing I want to inspire you to do. And it's not easy. It is not easy when you come to the table. I know this from politics, right? I'm a conservative. I come to the table with a certain point of view. It's not easy to let that go because in my mind, I say to myself, this is the right way to see the world. This is how we're going to improve. This is the path, right? I see it. Sometimes I get presented with information that makes me think. It doesn't always change my mind, but it makes me think. Welcome that. I don't care what the topic is. I don't care if you think, oh, that's not true. Just welcome it. It's a conversation. Maybe you walk away from here and you disagree with 95% of what I said, but that 5%, you're like, well, that part maybe. Great. Maybe you walk away and you're like, oh, I don't agree with any of it, but it's cool that she at least put it out there. Whatever it is, it's supposed to be, we're not getting, can we all agree that shit is messed up? If we can all agree that shit is messed up in the space of dating and relationships, then we should all be able to agree that we got to figure out a way to fix it. And we're not going to fix it. We're not going to fix it unless we take a minute and listen to what the other person is saying and just say, oh, well, what about this? What about that? But I am here to tell you that a partnership where there is mutual respect and trust is the way to go. That is your path to happiness. It is. So make your own decisions. Okay? Life gets lonely. It gets hard. Illness strikes. Family members are lost. Ups and downs. You lose jobs. You get jobs. Having somebody by your side who cares about you, who loves you and respects you, who's going to support you in that process, priceless. Just a fact. Talk to anybody who's been through an up and down and had a partner, and anybody who's been through ups and downs and doesn't. Okay? It's not the same world. All right. So don't forget to subscribe. Listen, if you like a good conversation, subscribe. You don't have to agree with it all. How boring would it be if we all agreed with each other all the time? We'd all be like falling asleep. Subscribe, hit your like button. We are going to be back here Wednesday. We have Vinny Oshana for a Shoot the Shit on Wednesday. You know Vinny. I think he's about to launch his own podcast. Funny How, I think it's called, actually. We'll have him on Wednesday. He'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to shoot the shit on a bunch of topics related to comedy, related to men, women, related to maybe some politics. I don't know. We'll decide. He'll be here for the full hour with us on Wednesday, and then I will be back here on Friday. Thank you so much for joining me today. Even the haters, you know I love you. You know I do. You know it. See you on Wednesday.